Carlson intentionally lied to his audience by misrepresenting what a Pentagon official had to say about a biological research facility in Ukraine. Now, this is a Russian propaganda talking point. Russia claims, I mean, it's claimed all sorts of things to try to provide an excuse for its invasion into Ukraine. And one of the pieces of propaganda that you might have heard of is that Ukraine posed some sort of threat to Russia because it was developing biological weapons with the help and funding of the United States. Those claims are unfounded. There's no evidence of the development of biological weapons. There is evidence of biological research facilities, which every country has, including Russia, including China, including the United States. These are labs that are meant to study pathogens, infectious diseases, and things like that. Now, before we get to the Tucker Carlson video, I want to give you some context here. So Tucker cited an interview with a Pentagon official named Robert Pope in order to give oxygen to the bioweapons theory. Incredibly, in the very same interview, Carlson cited to bolster his claim that Ukraine's biolabs are making bioweapons. Pope actually said that Ukraine's biolabs are not making bioweapons, and we'll provide that evidence for you in just a moment. Just wanted to give you that context before we toss to the segment in question. Let's watch.
The day after Russia invaded Ukraine, Robert Pope, the man who heads the Cooperative Threat Reduction Program at DoD, sat for an interview with the website Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. Pope is the man in charge of securing or eliminating Soviet-era bioweapons, so he knows a lot about the subject, maybe more than anyone else. But it turns out that not all of these Soviet weapons are being destroyed or even secured, and Pope acknowledged that in the interview, which apparently CNN didn't see. According to his interview, Pope said the labs, quote, may hold pathogen strains left over from the Soviet bioweapons program, preserved in freezers for research purposes. Pope said that, quote, scientists being scientists, it wouldn't surprise me if some of these strain collections in some of these laboratories still have pathogen strains that go all the way back to the origins of that program, end quote. In other words, because as Pope put it, scientists are scientists, they don't want to destroy all the bioweapons. Instead, they're using them to conduct new bioweapons research. That's what he said. And not just on strains left over from the Soviet Union.
Now, it's fascinating that Tucker Carlson decided to attack CNN in that segment, as if CNN somehow didn't do its due diligence, didn't do its research, and missed this big story. And he also properly cited where this interview with Pope took place, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, right? Now, this is something that I've noticed disinformation peddlers love to do. They'll cite reports knowing or assuming that their audience is full of idiots who won't take the time to read the original interview or read the original report. Luckily, we read the original report, and we're gonna give you the details right now. Again, this is published in Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. The title of the piece is US official says, Russian invasion of Ukraine risks release of dangerous pathogens. Great. Now, here are the excerpts from the interview, the quotes from Pope that Tucker Carlson intentionally left out of his broadcast. So the invasion could also provide fodder for new disinformation narratives around the labs, Pope feared. The Russians, he said, could potentially go to one of these facilities and fabricate something that they call evidence of nefarious activity at the facility. The pathogens in Ukrainian labs vary by facility, Pope said, but some can be characterized as presenting a concern in the Ukrainian environment. As an example, he cited African swine fever virus, which is highly contagious in pigs and has caused hundreds of outbreaks in Ukraine since 2012. There is no mention of bioweapons at all in the interview. There is mention of biological research facilities and how there is fear that through this Russian invasion, the Russians will gain control of those research facilities and either release dangerous viruses and pathogens as a biological weapon for themselves. And by the way, that is a legitimate concern. That's the reason why people have been concerned about Russia taking control of nuclear power plants in Ukraine. Nuclear power plants on their own are not a bad thing, right? If that's the way that the country has decided to get some of its energy. But if it falls into the wrong hands, it could be used as a weapon by the individuals who have gained control of it. In the same publication on Wednesday, by the way, Pope reiterated his concern about what could happen if the Russians capture these facilities. Carlson also ignored his comments on this as well. He said, quote, should Russian forces occupy a city with one of these facilities, we are concerned that Russia will fabricate evidence of nefarious activity in an attempt to lend credibility to their ongoing disinformation about these facilities. I guess Fox News and Tucker Carlson didn't see that. I guess they missed that. They didn't miss that. They know about it. They intentionally left parts of that interview out of the broadcast to mislead the audience. One more quote, Cenk. Again, this is from Robert Pope, who said, we know Putin lied when he said he wasn't preparing to invade Ukraine, and we are confident that Russia is willing to lie to try to justify their invasion. And that is exactly right. That is what Russia is currently trying to do. They're throwing anything they can against the wall to see what sticks, and it's not working. They're failing, which I love to see.
Yeah, now, I'm going to show you a little bit more about how they're doing this propaganda, but I think even the more interesting question is, why is Tucker Carlson doing this propaganda? Because normally he feeds the right-wing base, and he says a lot of outrageous, terrible, awful things because he knows his audience likes it. So we might be outraged by it, but I understand it. I understand why he does it, and it gets him a larger audience. In this case, he's going against his audience, which he almost never does, because we've seen the polling, 3/4 of Republicans are also against this invasion, and their heart goes out to Ukraine. And by the way, here's a rare time I'll say, God bless Republican voters for being on the right side of this. So the why is super interesting, but I'm gonna give you one more quote from Pope. And I wanna explain something. When you saw that video that we showed you of Tucker Carlson, he was quoting from this same report and the same exact paragraphs that we're reading from. He just took out the parts that we're reading. He left out the parts that made it seem like, oh, maybe the biolab is dangerous and maybe the Ukrainians could use it against the Russians. But here's one more quote from Pope. He said, that's the expert that Tucker Carlson quoted, but left this out. He said, there is no place that still has any of the sort of infrastructure for researching or producing biological weapons. So he was crystal clear that it was not biological weapons. Tucker Carlson went on air and intimated that it might be biological weapons and it might be used against the poor Russians. That's why the Russians have to do something. That is clearly the inference, right? Otherwise, why leave out the money line that says it's not biological weapons? He is clearly intending to deceive. So now the proximate reason why he's doing it is because Russian propaganda needs some sort of affront from the Ukrainians. Now, the Russians invaded in front of the whole world, even after the Ukrainian president said we don't have to be in NATO, so had conceded whatever Putin wanted. So now they've lost the media war completely, Russia has throughout the world, and they're doing overdrive in propaganda to try to make up for it. And this is the same trick that they use in Syria, where they say, oh, well, we didn't want to do it. It's just the Syrians dropped a chemical weapon on themselves from a plane they don't have. And then propagandists here on the right and the fake left in America perpetuated that, and they created enough, manufactured enough doubt for the world to say, oh, keep on murdering civilians in Syria. No one cares. Just destroy the country and hand it back to the dictator Assad as long as he's willing to do deals with you guys. So understand that it worked before. It also worked in Chechnya. So that's why they're going to this well, and they're going to blame the Ukrainians for their country being invaded, and in this case, outrageously, after the fact. We had to invade you in case you were going to do bioweapons against us later, right? Now, one more thing on biolabs. I looked it up. Canada also has them. So should China or Russia or America or Mexico invade Canada because of their dangerous biolabs? In fact, we could attack Canada. America could attack Canada and say, they had the biolabs right on our borders. I mean, it's right on our borders, it was an imminent threat. Now that would be outrageous. It would obviously be a lie and a pretense, and just as it is here in Russia. Now we give you all that because it is confounding. Why would Tucker Carlson go against even his own audience? And why would he lie in such an obvious and outrageous way? Now that part, everybody who's in America knows, wait a minute, yes, Tucker Carlson lying in outrageous ways, that makes sense, right? But in this direction, doesn't quite make sense. Well, that's where Alexander Dugin comes into the story, okay? So this is a Russian so-called philosopher. I actually think he's one of the dumbest people on the planet. But the right wing in our country has glommed onto him. Now, one of the things he believes in is a traditional state that is along nationalistic and religious grounds. So we're gonna explain that to you now more in a second, okay? But right-wingers like Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson here love that. And it is against liberalism, it against progress, and even against modernity. And funny enough, kind of against Western civilization. And the last straw, and this is amazing, we're gonna give you the exact quote, is that Russian so-called philosopher is trying to rip this country apart and has bragged about it along the lines of exactly what Tucker Carlson does nightly. The fact that they're doing it out in the open is amazing. So let's give you more details.
Right, so Alexander Dugin is the person we're talking about here, right? And look, I don't think that Tucker Carlson wants to destroy America the way Dugin does, but I do feel like there are some similarities in terms of their ideology, especially when it comes to traditionalism and all of that. So just to give you a few quotes from Dugin, he says, quote, "We conservatives want a strong, solid state, want order and a healthy family, positive values, the reinforcing of the importance of religion and the church in society. We want patriotic radio, TV, patriotic experts, patriotic clubs. We want the media that expresses national interest." He is a far-right Russian nationalist. That is his identity. Now, Tucker Carlson has actually cited him on his show. It's a short video. I wanna show you the context in which he mentioned Dugin. Let's watch.
If you want to understand a country's military, take a look at what its officer corps is reading. Military officers aren't just war fighters, they're trained to be thinkers, even intellectuals. Some of them have advanced degrees. In Russia, officers above the rank of colonel are required to read a book by a Russian nationalist called Alexander Dugin called The Foundations of Geopolitics. Dugin's book envisions a Eurasian empire with Russia at the center of it and then outlines a way to achieve that. In China, meanwhile, recruits are told to read The Origin and Goal of History. It teaches that China is successful because its culture is superior to the West's. Now, you might not agree with them, but these are serious books and they promote the national interests of the countries whose officers read them. That's why they're assigned. And that makes sense. So with that in mind, what are American military officers reading these days? Well, let's see. A subliterate pamphlet on how the United States is a disgusting, immoral country that must be changed immediately and forever.
So think about that context. I mean, he's admiring that the Russian military has to read the work of Dugin. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's like, oh, look at this awesome book that they're told to read, which makes them fighters, warriors. Look at our weak military learning about anti-racism. So it goes along with the ideology that Dugin believes in, right? Which is this collectivism, civil rights, those types of things. He wants to reject wholeheartedly. And you have more excerpts to read from, Cenk. So
yeah, so I think that clip's important too because it shows you that Tucker acknowledges he knows exactly who Dugin is. So it's not like he can say later, oh, Alexander Dugin, I never heard of him, right? So he's studied him to some degree for sure. Steve Bannon, of course, has said very positive things about Dugin, and Dugin has returned the favor in kind by saying, oh, I'd love to meet with Steve Bannon, and we think very much alike. I like Trump because of Steve Bannon. And so, and Dugin is a madman, but quite literally, like in the sense that he believes in violence. He thinks we should return to the Middle Ages.
Yep.
And I mean that's insane, right? But no, for Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, and some portions of the right wing here, they view that as really positive, because that we do not go towards either an identity we don't like if you're not Christian, we're not interested, okay? Or race, if you're not white, we're not interested. So we're not interested in equality, justice, or things that are literally the American way. Now, let me quote Dugin for you guys. And first one is, they're all haunting, but the first one is haunting because one of the things he wanted to do was rip America apart from the inside, because he views the Russian nationalism as, of course, the dominant one, and that they are superior to the rest of us. And he calls Europe and America Atlantis. And so he thinks the best thing to do is culture wars inside America to split us up. Now, as I read this to you, think about, does Tucker Carlson do this every night? Okay, watch. Dugin said, it is especially important to introduce geopolitical disorder into internal American activity, encouraging all kinds of separatism and ethnic, social, and racial conflicts, actively supporting all dissident movements, extremists, racists, and sectarian groups, thus destabilizing internal political processes in the US. It would also make sense simultaneously to support isolationist tendencies in American politics. That is a near perfect description of the culture wars that Fox News does on a nightly basis. Now, but you still gotta be thinking, Jesus, why does Tucker Carlson want to help a Russian rip us apart? Because in Tucker's mind, and a lot of the right wing's mind is, no, that happens, then we have the cleansing, okay? And then we realize this whole diversity, remember how he talks against diversity all the time? He says, when has it ever been helpful? I've never seen it be helpful. Then you realize America, after you're burnt to the ground, you have to re-rise as a nationalist America, a fascist America. Dugin is completely in favor of fascism. He calls it the fourth political theory. It's nonsense, it's just religious fascism. And he says you should do violence on behalf of it. He's openly racist. There's no question about what a despicable character he is, as they celebrate him. And by the way, extreme white supremacists in America have the same exact idea. First, America crashes, and then we restart as a nationalist, racist, religious-centered country. Because the founding documents say that we are all equal. Black, white, it doesn't matter. Gay, straight, it doesn't matter. We're all equal. If the true conservatives, traditionalists, view that as an anathema. It is America's founding documents are the exact opposite of what they want. So here's more on Dugin. He says all content of modernity is Satanism and degeneration. Nothing is worth, everything is to be cleansed off. The modernity is absolutely wrong. Science, values, philosophy, art, society, modes of pattern, truths, understanding of being, time, and space. All is dead with modernity, so it should end. We are going to end it. Now, when I read that, I was like, oh my God, that explains why they're attacking science. I'm like, why on God's green earth have the right wing lost their mind and they're randomly attacking science? Because they view it as part of modernity. They don't want to be modern, they want to be conservative. They want to maintain old traditions. Dugin openly talks about going literally medieval. He wants to go back to the Middle Ages because he thinks that was more traditional. And lunatics like Tucker Carlson apparently agree. By the way, why is Tucker like this? I don't know if you know this, I'll play a little pop psychology for you guys. His mother left the family to lead a bohemian lifestyle. And she left Tucker. Because that was individualism in Tucker's mind. Individualism ripped his family apart. He doesn't like that. Now, get a load of the irony here. Because he doesn't like individualism. And by the way, neither does Dugin. Dugin hates individualism. He
Individual rights, and yeah.
Yeah, not only should black people, non-Christians, et cetera, not have rights, but he thinks even on the right wing, no. Liberalism, which is what he calls capitalism, okay, is about wiping away national identity, and he doesn't like that. He thinks we should all have national identity or religious identity, not individual identity. Now, the reason why that's so ironic is because Tucker Carlson goes out every night and goes, freedom, I don't want to wear a mask, I don't want to get vaccinated because of individual liberty. When in reality, he despises individual liberty. Okay, and finally, Dugin says, the liberalism insists on the freedom and liberation from any form of collective identity. This is exactly what we're talking about here. That is the very essence of the liberalism, what he is arguing against, what he thinks America is. The liberals have liberated the human being from national identity, religious identity, and so on. The last kind of collective identity is gender, so there is time to abolish it, making it arbitrary and optional. And that is another one where you see with your own eyes the right wing doing that all the time. They're like, nope, we don't accept your chosen identity on the issues of gender. You are to be traditional, you are to be either male or female, and we will decide what you are. And so that part of the culture wars also brought to you by Dugin. And that is part of why Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson like him so much. Now, part of what they have to do to get there is to make us hate each other and fight each other endlessly through the culture wars. So Tucker Carlson is happy to do that nightly. That goes towards his meta goal. And now specifically though, as he sees what Dugin calls Eurasia rising, he thinks this is our moment. We have to support Dugin and our true allies, those in Russia who want to destroy equality and justice here so we could re-rise as a fascist country. Those are the sick, sick human beings that are running the most popular show on Fox News. That is unbelievable.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.